Welcome to the Waynesburg Effect, WCTV's only political talk show. Debate is encouraged on the show with a variety of political views and opinions that will be showcased. I'm your host, Mike Capelli, and today I'm joined by panelists Drew Rhea, Joe Smeltzer, and Antonio Palullo as we discuss several topics that are sweeping the nation. Several women have come out against Brett Kavanaugh with accusations of sexual assault. Is he guilty, or is this just the Democrats' ploy to keep him off the Supreme Court? Donald Trump's United Nations General Assembly speech. What were the major takeaways, and why was Trump laughed at? Finally, as we get closer to November, we take a look at the popularity of Donald Trump. Do more people approve or disapprove? If you have questions, then our panel has the answers. You're watching The Waynesburg Effect. Christine Ford, who initially accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, now has two companions. Two other women have accused Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct, Julie Swetnick and Debbie Ramirez. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is certainly getting a lot of media attention.
Yeah, I think when this whole situation is just so awful that we're going through all of this instead of just believing the women. I think this is one of the completely outrageous that we now have three women coming forward. One of these women tells a very gruesome story about what happened with her and Kavanaugh, including with more men. And it's just all kind of sickening that we just can't stop for a second and just say, you know what, let's just believe these women, because you know what happens in reality? Out of 100 sexual assaults, like 20% to 25% gets reported, 14 to 10% goes to court, and like about 7 to 10 face jail time, and then only 2 or less than 2% are false. It's just unbelievable that we can't sit here and just listen to these women and just trust what they say and trust what they're talking about and trust their experiences. I mean, when we heard the first victim testify, she told a story about hearing Kavanaugh's laugh and how awful it hurt her, and you could see her almost start to break down in tears thinking about the laugh that Kavanaugh and a buddy had when they were attacking her. It's just sickening. We can't just trust these women and just say, you know what, this isn't about political gain, because these women they're going through a lot right now, but with public criticism, we can't just trust them.
I see where you're coming from, Antonio, and I feel the same way as you. You should always trust someone when they come out, because if you immediately dismiss them, then like you said, it makes it really hard for victims to come out when so many of these accusations are being shot down. I actually do, after listening to Dr. Ford's testimony, I do believe that she was sexually assaulted that night. I just don't believe that it was Brett Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh's testimony was just as emotionally charged. You could just see the pain in his eyes and in his facial expressions, the pain in his voice. This is a man that's been publicly ridiculed for the past months. For months, he's been publicly ridiculed. He's been confronted by leftist politicians, literally calling him evil, the definition of evil. He's had his family. His family's had death threats issued against them. This is a man that's just at a very difficult place right now, and when you have these accusations issued against you, you really get emotional, and we saw that from Brett Kavanaugh. This is a man that's innocent and did not do what Dr. Ford has basically accused him of doing.
But that's so unfair, because now you're saying, you're on the front end saying, yes, we should believe women, we should trust women, but then on the back end you're saying, but she's not right. How can you say one thing and then completely remove yourself from another? I mean, it's just so unfair to this woman that clearly she believes and she acknowledges that it was Kavanaugh, and clearly this man has done things to other women. We look at Swetnick, Ramirez. I mean, we should just step back and just say, you know what, these women are right, and if these women are right, we should step back and we should just remove Kavanaugh from potential of being a Supreme Court justice, because it's just so much chaos and he's so problematic at this point. He's caused more problems than he has solutions. It just doesn't make sense that hang on to, especially with these allegations.
I think that definitely these need to be taken very seriously. These women are not to be criticized. That's I'm with you on that. Totally unfair to be criticized, but I think you need to look, kind of break down where everything is. I don't see sufficient enough evidence that Brett Kavanaugh is guilty. Looking at Dr. Ford and Ramirez's allegations, both sound very similar. And as for Swetnick's accusations, I think it's clear that something went down, but I don't know if what Brett Kavanaugh's role was in that. So I think obviously very troubling. Kavanaugh apparently, at least in college, had an alcohol problem, and after college had trouble controlling his drinking, and that in and of itself is a red flag as a Supreme Court justice. But I don't see sufficient enough evidence that everything that happened as they're saying it happened.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you. There hasn't been 1 ounce of, corroborative info that gives us any reason to believe that Brett Kavanaugh was involved. I'm 100% with you guys on taking every allegation seriously. But when you can't provide sufficient evidence to prove guilt, in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. If beyond a reasonable doubt, Brett Kavanaugh is not guilty of these allegations, then why are we still talking about it? We should be out searching for who did this, who actually did this to these people, instead of questioning Brett Kavanaugh, who, in my opinion, has done nothing wrong in that scenario.
I think you guys keep coming back to protecting Kavanaugh. And it's frustrating, I think, for all the women to see this and hear this, because you know what? Maybe one case was kind of loose, but there's probably a woman out there who acknowledges and see what these women are going through, who might see and say, well, I'm not going to come out because I can't go through that. Because you know what's going on right now for Ford? She has to go through funding she has to fund security for her and her family, because she's pretty much ruined her life because people keep attacking her. She's under attack and distress from not only the media, but also public people, public figures. I mean, she had a life that was pretty much out of the spotlight until she decided, she came forward and she knowingly said, you know what, I'm going to do the greater good. And if that's not what America is about, doing the greater good and sacrificing what you have for something that's greater than yourself, then I don't understand. She's trying to protect our Constitution, and she's trying to protect our liberties and our justices. And there you go, not attacking her, but defending Kavanaugh, who maybe, you know what, these cases are kind of shaky, but clearly there's some questionable past decisions he's had or he's made that you can definitely circle back to saying, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have this man behind here, because you know what, we said the same thing about Anita Hill, and what ended up happening in that situation? The Supreme Court justice got approved, and nobody believed Anita Hill.
Well, if you're going to question him about his drinking, then question him about his drinking. If you're going to question him about being weak on the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment, then by all means, go ahead. But to accuse him of rape when there's no evidence, and that's the thing. It's not that I don't believe Brett Kavanaugh. It's not that I believe Brett Kavanaugh is a perfect choice. I think that there were a lot better choices for Trump to make. But when we go after someone with no credible evidence, what precedent are we setting for future nominations of Supreme Court justices?
I think we do have a lot of evidence, and that evidence is Ford's testimony and the fact that she said it happened. I think that's all the evidence we should get in this situation, because why would somebody like this ruin their life just for this?
Well, I think the major thing here is you're discussing the credibility of all the witnesses. But when we come back, we're going to discuss Trump's United Nations speech. Stay tuned for the Waynesburg Effect.
Rough day, huh? Hey, rough day, huh? Maybe this will make you feel better. I made some apple fritters. Welcome home.
Thank you, I really needed this today.
There are little things that you can do to help you when you're driving a car, but the one thing that you shouldn't do when driving a car is texting and driving. In fact, at any given time throughout the day, approximately 660,000 drivers are attempting to use their phones while behind the wheel of an automobile. And 11 teens die every day as a result of texting while driving. According to the National Safety Council, 25% of all automobile crashes are related to cell phone use. Don't text and drive.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. Now we're going to open up the panel to discuss President Trump's UN speech and what the major takeaways were. Drew, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so President Trump at the United Nations General Assembly is where you want him. You do not want him on Twitter speaking about these issues. You want him up there at the podium with a prepared speech, talking about the economy, talking about America first. He dropped some really good quotes. America will always choose independence and cooperation over global governance, control, and domination. I think that was very well said. Virtually everywhere socialism and communism is tried, it has produced suffering, destruction, and decay. And then he called for a restoration of democracy in Venezuela. Obviously, we know about the tragedies going on there. He did not apologize for America, which we've seen in the past at prior UN meetings. And I think overall he did a really, really good job. Unfortunately, as always when the president speaks, there are things taken out of context, social conventions taken out of context, as was the case in his speech. But I think overall he did a very good job.
Certainly. Now, Antonio, you were laughing during some of Drew's comments. What's so funny?
I mean, this guy's a meme. I mean, like, literally, he goes on to say, like, oh, this is the greatest period in American history. Does he not realize we went through a depression, a war, and then we built one of the greatest generations in American history? I mean, like, seriously, this guy, President Trump just rambles on and says whatever he likes and whatever he feels. And yes, this may have been a prepared speech, but clearly he didn't understand the context of the speech, and he didn't clearly understand what his job was there to do. Yes, I like the idea. Yes, the idea of America first is great, but you know what America first got us into? The Depression. And I don't know if you remember, but then we had to get a certain Democrat to help us get out of the Depression and into a financially stable economy. And I think over the course of history, you'll see that, you know, this guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, he really hasn't done that much. If you look at history, if you look at the last 6 to 8 years, I think it is, you've seen unemployment go down, GDP go up, pay wages go up. I mean, it's just an uphill trail. And Trump tagged along at 2017, 2016. And he's claiming that he's done all that. In reality, it's been an uphill battle. So this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, honestly.
Well, I think Pearl Harbor got us out of the Depression, but that's a historical topic that we can.
And if you mention Pearl Harbor, it's getting into the war. But you know why we got involved with Pearl Harbor? Because we were building and manufacturing ships and weapons to send overseas. It wasn't that Pearl Harbor we were well out of Depression by the time we got into World War II. We were well out of the Depression.
So I've always liked Trump's approach to America first. Obviously, we want to be the global superpower, and Trump, I think that's pretty much how he's our president, is pushing that point forward. But where he needs to be careful is not to alienate other countries, because in order for America to be all it can be, we have to work with other nations. And as long as President Trump decides to can find kind of a medium in pushing his point across, but at the same time not alienating those other nations, I think that's the key. But my concern is that he might fall short in that. So finding that compromise, I think, is the big thing.
No, I think, Joe, you're absolutely correct. When he said, that they want to choose independence, he did mention cooperation, which I think is a good point. But I can see where you're coming from as far as isolating some nations, and Canada. He's been very, he doesn't want to be as buddy-buddy with Canada as past presidents have been. So I can see your point there. I think the biggest thing for him to focus on internationally is to make sure that, like you said, our power isn't forgotten and we're respected internationally, which I think right now we are.
I don't think we are, because we have the largest military in the world. I think if we killed our military budget, I think it was by 70%, we still have the largest military in the world. I think when this America First idea comes through, it's a way to get those far right people and those moderates to say, you know what? Yeah, we need to be involved on both sides of the spectrum of, yeah, we need to focus on ourselves, but we also still need that kind of useful ability to work with people. It just, I don't understand why you poke the bear with the relationship in Canada. I don't understand why you go to the European Union and you, again, just poke the bear, cause more problems. These are stable relationships that were fine before he got here, that were benefiting us, that he just decided to kick around and throw his foot in and just destroy, because why not? Because he wants to do it his way and he wants to do it America first. But in reality, America first is American jobs, which we're going to end up losing because of all these foreign companies that have plants or manufacturers in America. They're just going to say, fine, if you don't want to, if you're going to tax us and you're going to cause more problems for us to have businesses in your country, we're not going to open those businesses. Do you know where the largest BMW factory is? It's in Kentucky. You know where? And Kentucky's going to probably lose those jobs because of the way steel has been going up.
Well, not to interrupt here, but the main takeaway I took from his speech was all the laughter. And now, during the speech, he said, "Oh, I didn't expect that reaction." And then afterwards, they tried to spin it and say that the comment was meant to draw laughter. And I'm just curious what you guys think. Why was he laughed at? Why?
Because, I mean, like I said earlier, he's kind of a meme. People, I mean, President Trump tries to be this sophisticated, intelligent man, but in reality, yeah, he's intelligent in a sense. Everybody's intelligent in a sense, but I think when he makes the comment, this is the greatest success we've ever seen as a country, it's just completely ignoring this country's history.
True.
Yeah, I did. I was, like you said, I was trying to derail from that originally, the whole incident with the laughter. Honestly, when a second-rate Iranian dictator laughs at you, I'm not too concerned. So
wasn't just an Iranian dictator.
Well, he was leading it, so I'm not too concerned. Like I said.
When we come back, we will discuss the popularity of President Trump and how he will fare in the midterm elections. Stay tuned. You're watching The Waynesburg Effect.
Achoo! Thanks.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. With November getting closer and closer, we're going to take a closer look at how people in this country view President Donald Trump. As of September 23rd, one poll says that 52.8% of people disapprove and 41.4% approve. So now, what do you think, Joe?
I think that that's a pretty accurate indication of how the country sees the president. So less than half the country approves of President Trump. Trump also lost the popular vote. So in looking at the article by 538, kind of breaking down where the president's approval rating is compared to some of his predecessors, if I read the graph correctly, which I don't always do, but I'm pretty sure I got this one right, the most accurate comparison I could find in recent years was Trump with Bill Clinton. Because for the same amount of days in office, Clinton's approval rating was 44.1, which is a little less than 3% higher than Trump's is right now. And I think both of those guys are similar, both preach economics, both had a little questionable personal lives. So overall, I think that the approval rating is an accurate indication of the perception of President Trump.
Yeah, I think right now, 40% is kind of rough for a guy who, again, didn't win the popular vote. And I think, it's funny how approvals work, because I remember Obama was heavily criticized for saying he would take a meeting with North Korea during his campaign, but Trump says it during his, and he gets that meeting and he's praised. I mean, I think it's just all about perspective. CNN, MSNBC, they're always going to protect Obama. Fox News is always going to protect Trump. It's all about this bias they have, and I think when you look at follow those bias, it's kind of unfair to everybody.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I think it's a very good representation of President Trump, especially when you look at both parties. The Republican Party clocked in at a 45% approval rating, the Democrats at a 44%. So I think it's a very good representation of where we are politically right now, where just overall trust in government is starting to fall. As the economy increases, I think his approval rating will increase. If he's able to avoid the tariffs hurting the economy, if somehow, some way, which I don't agree with the tariffs, I think it's bad for the economy. If somehow, some way, he's able to avoid that and people continue to get more money in their pockets, I think that you'll see that number climb. But right now, I think it's where it should be.
Antonio, I saw some chuckling over there again. What did Drew say this time that has piqued your interest?
Well, it just is a defense of like this idea that what Trump is doing is somehow working, because in reality, what's been happening has been a product of what's been going on, and it's also been an ideal product of. Listen, this country is very divided, but who do you think caused a lot of that division of screaming, "Hey, those people over there are bad. Those people over there are good. Let's drain the swamp, but let's bring back career politicians." It's like one of those things where it's like, this man says one thing, but then he does another, and then he means one thing, but he completely thinks another thing. It's just a challenge to. It's like he's doing this. He's trying purposely to push the wedge on. I mean, even reporting news and fake news. I mean, we talk about all the time. It seems like the White House and the administration is trying to push a wedge into that debate as much as they can.
Well, I think both parties are to blame for the political divisiveness of the nation in 2018.
Yeah, it's the people. I don't think it's one politician, one man. I think the people themselves are kind of responsible in a lot of ways for that.
Yeah, I think it's just the way this nation is right now.
But you say how President Trump has been fighting the divide with economic growth. We saw a ton of economic growth under Obama, and then for some reason, all these people were frustrated and angry with Obama. The former president was being attacked because we saw all this political growth, and yes, we saw some foreign mistakes, but America's littered with foreign mistakes, and I just think it's unfair that one side gets criticized for trying to mold the problems, and then the other side gets the benefits of, well, we're trying to fix it.
I wouldn't say there was tremendous economic growth under Obama. I think where he started with sort of lends to that. It's just been so exponential with Trump. We're going to talk about the hidden vote. Is there a hidden vote coming up? The African American approval rating of Donald Trump has doubled because there's an all-time low in unemployment rate amongst African Americans, and it's very low across the entire country.
I think the best thing for you two is just agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
But when we come back, we're going to open up the panel for commentary, where panelists will be able to discuss topics that they're passionate about. You're watching The Waynesburg Effect.
I didn't realize what a fine line it is between social drinking and a problem. I hadn't even noticed what was happening, and then he was gone. Hi, honey. He's gone.
There's one sound in the morning that everyone hates. But it brings you to one of the most important decisions of your day. Breakfast. Some will decide to skip it, but studies show that eating breakfast to start off your day can help improve your memory and increase test scores.
I got a 35 out of 100. Another failed test.
And it can also help keep you awake and focused throughout the day. So when you wake up and have that important decision to make, the choice should be clear. Remember to eat breakfast each and every morning.
Can't wait to have a great start to this day.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. We'll now open the panel for some commentary, and we're going to start with Drew. Drew, what are you passionate about today?
I tell you what, Mike, here's something that I think we all can agree on. EA Sports needs to bring back the NCAA football franchise. Last came out in 2014. This game is coveted in the sports world, in the gaming world, everywhere. I have 13, the second newest version currently, and people are flocking to my room almost on a nightly basis to play this game. I think I have like 5 franchises started on this game from 3 or 4 different people. So NCAA football needs to come back. EA Sports, bring it back. Joe?
Colorado Rockies are the hottest team in the National League. They've been absolutely pummeling their opponents over a now 5-game win streak, and they were winning again against the Phillies. Sorry, Antonio, as far as of this taping. But some food for thought is that the Rockies are in first place in the NL West. If they win the division and play in the playoffs, it'll be similar to 2007 when they won 19 of their last 20 games that ended up winning the National League to face the Red Sox in the World Series and got swept in 4 games. Who has the best record in Major League Baseball right now? The Boston Red Sox. So can we see a repeat of 2007?
I'm going to do the first non-sports one. Paul Gosar is a Republican representative running for Congress, or running for re-election, and he's had 6 family members, brothers and sisters, come out with a commercial for Dr. David Brill against him. Now, the family members claim it's politically motivated, but all 6 of these family members said they used to be very close with their brother, Paul. But I think it's motivated by, these are business owners, these are people that have their own lives, and Gosar has been running around screaming some pretty dangerous rhetoric, and it's probably damaging the Gosar name, so they probably are protecting their own brand more than they are protecting their political beliefs.
Well, first of all, I'm shocked that Joe decided to talk about baseball. But what I want to close on today is just about general happiness. You know, remember to be happy. In today's world, we're all hustle and bustle, doing everything we can to try to be away from our own thoughts. So I wanted you guys to know to take the time and do what makes you happy. And that's really all it is. Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. I hope we were able to answer some of your questions and even arise some new ones. Tune in next time for The Waynesburg Effect.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.